In 10 years, Jessica, we met, Mitch, we met you before. Evelyn, we have not met. Evelyn is a fascinating person. I mean, I know you all met her already at dinner and drinks and the pool parties that you've had. But Evelyn and I go back several years. And we've always been friends.
Got a new one coming out.
And when I found out recently that she was doing this thing called Untamed, it was quite cool. Very similar to being able to motivate, encourage, and again, create a community that comes together because of the purpose. And we started talking about what we were doing here. And I said, Evelyn, could you join us? And she says, well, I'm in Bali, Singapore, LA. I don't know, do people know you work with Meta?
Yeah, but they do now.
Okay, so I'm in Bali, Singapore, LA, London. At which point do you want me to come in? I said, well, it seems like you're going around the world. We'll just take another plane over. And she did. Thank you so much. And when we started talking about Untamed and what she was doing with Untamed, I'm sure you'll hear about this later. If you haven't, but just mentioned it a little bit now. She talked about some of the things that Meta is doing as well. Am I allowed to say that?
Well, I won't be sharing what Meta is doing today, but I will be sharing my observations of what the kids are doing.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah. And so we were saying, okay, what is it, the conversation? What is the topic title? And the topic title is, in 10 years, we didn't see this coming, which I think is pretty cool. Because I think as we get older, our perceptions change, our minds and brains slow down a little bit. And we get stuck in our day-to-day lives and deal with day-to-day situations and circumstances. And perhaps for a very few of us, we don't really step back outside of our regular world and sort of envision a different world. And so with having in an environment, in a corporation, and creating a community that's based on women internationally, and I'm trying to understand what's happening globally and looking into and peering into and making a hypothesis of what the future looks like. So this is going to be a very exciting panel for me at least, and I want you to share. It doesn't have to come to reality, but it may, right? We didn't see this coming. What the heck? Let's look back. And we want to record this so 5 years from today we can say, yeah, you guys hit it. You hit it. And in 10 years we'll say, you were smoking crack in somebody's crack house.
We'll take bets.
Okay, we'll take bets. All right, go ahead, take it away.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to be moderating the panel just because we have two, experts on very different sides of Web3 and the metaverse. Evelina, she's on the branding and the market side, the marketing side, and then Mitch is on kind of the building and the investing side. So first, I wanted to ask, how did you guys get into Web3 in the first place? Did you learn about it and realize this is where I need to be because it's so relevant, or it will be, or did you kind of fall into it?
Yeah, sure. So for me, admittedly, it was YouTube actually. So I first heard about Bitcoin and Ethereum in 2017. So started investing personally, was really behind kind of the mission of those initial projects. And then professionally, I actually came into it. I mentioned yesterday, by way of academia, I was writing a dissertation, ended up settling on blockchain, but I actually started on Venezuela and their currency crisis, and then soon discovered that many Venezuelans were using Bitcoin as what's called a vehicle currency. They're using Bitcoin to get into other currencies. I thought that was really interesting, in light of their currency collapse of what had happened. And I decided to shift my focus onto blockchain for that dissertation, and then got connected with Matthew and the blockchain Coinvestors team, and really enjoyed working with them, and just stuck.
So for me, I've been in the digital tech marketing space for a while. And my professional background is I was working in advertising, for some of the largest networks around the world, creative agencies, digital agencies. So the Web3 evolutions, or like where we're at the edges of this kind of like next frontier, for me is an absolutely natural progression for what I was already doing anyway. Because when you're in an advertising agency, you're always looking at the cutting edge of kind of what is the next trend, what are consumers doing, what are the kids doing, and you just follow that path. And I just quite like to just quickly highlight in terms of what Kareem was saying about the Web3 community. Because I'm in the tech marketing space anyway, the gap that, you know, we recently saw, I very much like, you know, Lisa's mission, which is we decided to create this Web3 women's community. So together with 5 other founding members, you know, outside of my professional job at Meta, and I lead the creator ecosystem or the marketing ecosystem for creators at Meta, you know, we realized that there was a huge opportunity and this gap in knowledge of women in the space. And, you know, Lisa said it so articulately, so I won't say it again, but we are, you know, a community of women in APAC specifically, but the content is global because Web3 is borderless, and it's all about bringing more women into the space. And, you know, if anything, you know, females are in, you know, they haven't been given that exposure, but APAC females, they're a minority of a minority. So it's such a vast chasm of just like potential there. So that's currently what I'm passionate about.
And how are those conversations going with women? Do you find that there's still a lot of education that's needed because people don't really know what Web3 is, or is everybody really hungry just to kind of jump in?
It's a spectrum, I think. You know, there are incredible females in the Web3 space. They're there, they're working side by side with each of you, or in the different industries across Web3. They're just not in the forefront. As always, they're not taking the headlines, they're not speaking up. As you know, as many of those are, there are women that have absolutely no knowledge of what the hell is going on, just like many men have no knowledge of what, you know, is going on. So I think it's both, but certainly from our community, and this community really only took shape 3 months ago, so you can just understand the appetite, the hunger for knowledge is just insane, and people are just wanting more information. They want to dive deeper, they're excited, they see the opportunity at hand, and they just want to get involved or learn, you know, or if you're a mum, maybe you want to know what your kids are going to be doing, like what's interesting them, so you can have a conversation at the dinner table.
So what are kids talking about? Like how is Web3 shifting culture right now?
Sure. So, I mean, look, I think this question threw us a bit. So, you know, where are we going to be in 10 years is a pretty damn hard question. Where will we be next month, right? That's hard enough to answer. Where will we be in 6 months? And certainly, and I'm just going to share a couple of slides, but I know we don't have loads of time. So like I said, my expertise is digital marketing. I've worked with brands and marketing agencies for a long, long time. And you know, the key thing that we always say to brands is find out where your consumers are. What are they doing, right? Because that's going to drive and inform your digital strategy. That's going to drive and inform everything that you do. And it's the kids that are shaping our futures, their futures, in fact. So really, we kind of need to see where they're at, and then we and brands are desperately following that. And you know, some of these trends might seem slightly superficial. They might seem superfluous in the sense, you know, we've talked about some really big ideas over the last week. But what I would like to remind the audience is that in order for Web3 to, you know, be accepted by the general public, there needs to be mass adoption. And currently the state of play is that the everyday person on the street has no idea what we're talking about, right? It goes over their heads. And, you know, you need a vehicle. What is that vehicle going to be? Or several vehicles that are going to take Web3 to mass adoption. And I dare say it's the brands that are trying to do that job. Okay, and they're doing it in a potentially short-term economics or gimmicky way, but they are giving an entry point to the young kids, to young adults, to understand what this world's about. So I'll jump into some of these trends. Okay, And I think, Jess, you wanted to maybe interject or have anyone ask questions as we
Yeah,
go
if anybody has
through.
questions during this time, feel free to raise your hand.
Okay. So trend number one, personal avatars will be just as important as our real selves. And I think, this point came up yesterday. If you're over the age of 30, which I'd say most of this room are, or even over the age of 25, honestly, like you're not seeing, we see our online time and our offline time, right? They're two separate entities, like a pie. Kids don't see it like that. It's one world for them. They're spending their time online, and they're spending their social time online. They're spending their education time online. It's one time, right? And they're going to need, and they're already creating these avatars, these personal avatars, for different interactions that they're going to have online. So we're going to have different multiple avatars, right? And I think, the data question needs to be solved, but this is what is happening currently in this space. So if you're a kid, you probably have already created your avatar, right? And you'll have multiple avatars for maybe your work interactions or your education interactions online in the metaverse. You'll have your social interactions online in the metaverse with your friends. And these different avatars will have different buying behaviors. They'll have different tastes. They'll have different friends. And really, this thing is huge, and it's not really been mentioned too much in this conference. But there's been talk that these personal avatars could potentially act as our user ID in the future. So very much like how now, in order to access a lot of the Web 2 applications, you will use your email address to log in, right? And so we may very well be using, if we can solve the data, right? We may very well be using our personal avatars to log into Web3 applications as soon as those become interoperable, okay? And again, as a marketing person, I can see this bubbling already. Direct to avatar marketing is a huge opportunity. Just like direct to consumer marketing is huge, there will be agencies and brands that will be born, directly targeted at marketing to our avatars.
I think Cynthia mentioned that yesterday, where she mentioned that one of the apes of someone that we worked with had Gucci branding, but it wasn't labeled as such. There was no promotion around it, but the ape had it on them because it was part of that sub community. So the same thing with avatars, where they're going to be decked in whatever people would buy in person, whether it's Nike, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. But
absolutely. So it's a huge. And we talk about new jobs and new industries being formed in this space, and direct to avatar marketing is one of them.
Do you have any kind of projection about what type of money that's going to look like? Like how much is going to be spent?
How much money is going to be spent? It's going to be spent in the billions. I mean, I hope and how much money we will spend on our personal avatars to deck them out in the right clothes. And I've got the next trends about virtual fashion, which kind of leads on quite nicely. The virtual fashion industry is projected at being 50 billion by the year 2030. That's only 8 years away, right? The more time we spend online, the more our avatars become our personal identities online, the more we kind of want to look good online, right? And that will be how we dress. And we will be able to dress our avatars in the wildest, most creative outfits you can dream up of. And fashion labels, fashion houses, sports brands are just seeing this huge opportunity. And there's a lot of talk about phygital, which basically means that you can buy let's say your Nike sneaker for your avatar, right? So it's your NFT Nike sneaker, or you can also buy the same Nike sneaker in physical stores. So you'll have both, and you'll want both, right? And it's all about the whole idea about status, and what you're wearing really will represent who you are, or be one of the ways in which you represent who you are online.
So I have a quick question there, because you mentioned those NFT Nike sneakers, and that's what comes to my mind, that this is obviously a perfect fit for public blockchains. But we know that there's kind of an alternative metaverse being formed, in kind of the traditional rails. Do you think that in your conversations with kind of this younger generation, that they even care if something's an NFT, if they self-custody it, that they own it, or will they simply choose the products that are the best?
No, I think it's going to really, I think the whole NFT thing, I mean, yes, it feels hypey now, and I'm on the NFT panel this afternoon, so I'll try to save some of the conversations for then. However, like I said, with going back to how kids see it as one world, right? They don't make a distinction between offline and online. It's only natural for them, if they're spending more time online, that they should own what they're doing online. So I see it as like I don't think they just think that that's how it should be. It's a complete no-brainer, in my opinion.
And actually, so you bring up a really interesting concept, and maybe you want to skip ahead to that slide, but how for children who maybe they have an allowance, but like where are they getting the money
that is really interesting
to spend on all of these things?
Cool. So these are just some examples of, I think, we don't have time today, come and find me if you're interested. Luxury, like completely has blown my mind in terms of how much they've got into the fashion space, right? The luxury had the most to lose. They're catered, they've got heritage, their legacy, they're catered for VIP white glove service, right? Retail experience, and they have pivoted left to move into digital couture like no one else. So it's super, super interesting. Okay, so this is mind-blowing. And Lisa kind of touched on it, I think, on Monday because of the gaming reference. Okay, play to earn, rent to earn, and the creation of virtual goods in gaming will transform how Gen Z and lower socioeconomic groups earn a living. Now, for those that don't know about play to earn, it's the concept that you can earn currency, cryptocurrency, or tokens as you play your game. It sounds kind of too good to be true. But it's happening, and it's taken off. Like it's taken off in a really big way. And the pandemic has been the perfect catalyst. As we were all in lockdowns, kids were just playing games, and it's taken off globally. Billions of VC funding has gone into the new games that we're going to see very, very soon. But where it's truly taken off is the Philippines. Right, the Philippines is such a hyper-engaged Web3 market, and they are playing play-to-earn games like I've never seen. And this is where it's really interesting. It is estimated that there are more people in the Philippines with a blockchain wallet than they have credit cards. So just if you think about that for a moment, it's kind of mind-blowing. You've got suddenly a lower socioeconomic group who were unbanked, who in the Web 2 world was disallowed from financial services. For whatever reason, they weren't allowed a credit card. Maybe they couldn't prove their income, stable income, et cetera. They're leapfrogging that, and they're going straight into Web 3 wallets, right? It's kind of mind-blowing. And kids in the Philippines are playing. There's a documentary about it, which I share in the next slide, about play to earn and the Philippines and how it's changing the financial model. Very soon, children these days or teenagers these days, might come to, might say to their parents, because I work in the creator economy, saying, I want to be a TikTok star. I want to be the next YouTuber. It's very, very possible, and I will put my money on this, that kids will be saying they want to be a gamer, and it will be financially viable. Right, through play to earn, through rent to earn. There are different financial models coming out of gaming. You can also rent your NFT to game guilds. And so just everything about it is just blossoming. The gaming world is primed for Web3 because they get it. They get NFTs, right? They get trading and flipping. They get cryptocurrency because there's a utility in the game. So for them, it's second nature. And there's a lot of talk around how, I talked about the vehicle to bring Web3 to mass adoption, right? Brands are trying to do that, right? But there's a ton of interest in gaming because it feels like this will be the entry point in which kids get their first taste of Web3. And I akin it very much to how, for Web 1, how we got our first taste of Web 1 potentially by opening an email account. So an AOL account, a Yahoo account, whatever account you opened, if you were around in the 90s. And then, in the 2000s, we got our first taste of Web 2, potentially through social media, right? Maybe you opened your MySpace or Friendster or Facebook account, right? And now kids are getting their first taste of Web3 through gaming. And so, yeah, but the socioeconomic groups of how this will change financial structures, how kids will be earning a living in the future is mind-blowing.
Well, that's something that we actually completely agree with, and we think play to earn is going to be one of those vehicles for widespread adoption. I'm curious what you think. So you're saying it's picked up in more developing nations like Philippines where you can improve your socioeconomic status. Some of the things I've read, you are seeing pushback from more traditional gamers in the Western world. Have you guys looked at that interplay on whether or not more traditional gamers who maybe think cryptocurrencies are bad for the environment or unnecessary and are pushing back? Have you seen any sort of interplay there?
I mean, I'm not within like the gaming part. There's a gaming partnerships at Meta, so I'm not in that world. So I hear everything through kind of like just being close to the team. So I don't know that. Obviously, I think the whole sustainability energy question proliferates everything. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe Lisa has an answer to that question. Yeah.
Well, back to the idea that crypto and gaming in the Philippines at least is changing the financial model, because they're jumping past the idea of achieving credit and going straight to wallets. Are you seeing that in any other markets, Mitch, from what you guys are paying attention to?
Yeah, I think that there's lots of different types of games that are picking up. I mean, she's absolutely right. The adoption has been first in Southeast Asia, first and foremost, particularly in the case of Axie Infinity. That was really one of the first games that kind of created this economic system that started, having real people earn real dollars, leaving their other jobs, paying for it. You haven't seen it with a lot of other games on that sort of widespread level. Axie Infinity's NFTs are by far the most valuable if you look at the total value pool, even though there are more users on other games such as Splinterland, DeFi Kingdoms. What we think is interesting is that, and you alluded to this idea of guilds. There's actually then within these worlds, because everything operates on tokenization, token economies, you can then actually build sort of mini financial systems, mini economies. And no game has exactly gotten it right just yet, because Axie's actually thereafter experienced a sort of fall. Potentially because of the way they started pricing some of their NFTs. But we think that once the games get it right, and as long as, very importantly, the games are fun, because first and foremost, money still has to be coming in, right? You still have to be attracting people. People still have to want to pay for skins that make their guns look cool, or whatever you can imagine. Once that game gets that right, we think that there's going to be a really, interesting flywheel effect, as the industry develops.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many financial models that I think we'll see soon in the gaming world. I mean, I think the number is like 5 billion from VCs was pumped into play to earn games just like really recently. And those high spec games haven't hit the market yet, right? So we'll see that in the next 6 to 8 months, even 12 months. But I think what also we need to like get our heads around is the future of earning a salary is also going to like change. So again, most of us, have grown up with the notion that we need, the Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, one stable income. Yeah, kids don't see it like that. They're going to have like 5 jobs, and they're going to be freelancing for like multiple industries. They're not going to be tied to any one thing.
You're already seeing that happening all over the world.
Totally. Yeah. And if you say, oh, I had one job, they'll be like, oh God. Like, and obviously, again, the pandemic, allowed every one of us to work remotely, and it's just been a catalyst. It's just, and kids will not only want to work remotely, they won't want to work for one person. They're going to have like multiple side hustles, each which are earning different levels of income, which sustain them. And play to earn gaming is likely going to be part of one of their side hustles.
And one thing, sorry, just to jump in, I would add, at least from the investment side, it's actually a revolution for game developers and independent studios, because up until now, at least, Wall Street, the public markets, they haven't loved the game studios, so there aren't that many publicly traded game studios. So this model, because you can add in tokenization, actually allows you to pay your developers early and creates a sustainable economic model for them. So we actually expect there to be loads of new games, loads of independent studios coming out with games in a way that actually kind of increases that industry as well.
And real quick, other than, Lisa, is there anyone in the room who, is investing in gaming or works in gaming? Can we raise our hands real quick just to see? Interesting. Anybody who wants to get in now after hearing about the future? Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's shocking. Actually, it's shocking that they have to put it up there.
Well, there were a couple, but they were like this.
A good number of hands of people who are investors.
Mm.
But then when you ask the question, does anyone else want to come in? And no more hands go up. More people.
There were a couple that were just kind of like this. Yeah. I know we're taking your money right now today if you want to.
So I just want to emphasize that point, that in the whole world of blockchain and in everything we're building, entertainment is one of the key value capture opportunities. So I just want to emphasize that. And I'm not proposing any particular investment opportunities, but if Link2 occasionally pops up an NFT or a blockchain-based gaming company, I encourage you to look very closely at it.
Mm.
And there may or may not be one on the platform right now.
Mm. Thank you.
I think Mike might have an antagonistic question.
We've got another.
Who was first? All right, there we go, Mike. Who was the one close to Bob? No? You need to stir.
I've got more, but we don't have time.
I was just going to make some commentary that might put this in a different historical context and might move you closer to I want to invest. The only thing that's new about all of this relative to gaming is the ability to move from virtual currency to real currency and back again. Gaming last year was bigger, revenue-wise, bigger than films and professional sports combined. MasterCard invested last year, or no, 2 years ago, $50 million into a Korean gaming league because it's the only way that they can reach 18 to 35-year-old males. So to think that gaming isn't huge money is silly. NFTs is a very limited addition to what's going on that does enable this idea of you can earn a real world salary in a virtual world. Final point, my nephew was offered 6 college scholarships to be a digital gamer on their gaming team because those universities can't afford physical sports programs, but they can have great esports programs. So a lot of money there.
Great, thank you for the context. Nick?
I just have a quick question with regards to blockchain gaming versus traditional gaming for the panelists. Let's compare something like Axie Infinity to Grand Theft Auto Online, for example. I mean, there's a huge development gap and there's a huge jump between how fun those games are, right? Grand Theft Auto Online is objectively more fun than Axie Infinity. But of course, you're putting money into it, not getting capital out. So just asking from your perspectives, where do you see the development in games that can compete with AAA titles from the decentralized gaming space, full stop?
It's coming, is all I can say. Like the amount of funding that's gone into the gaming world, it's not out there yet. And like, we're kind of like getting the preview now, but like in 6 months, 8 months, those high spec, high studio animated games, they are coming. Like the money has gone into this, is the only comment that I can make on that.
Yeah, and I just think we're not there yet exactly. I mean, I think there's a lot of impediments aside from money. We have the scalability issue of a lot of the premier layer ones. So where it's very expensive, right, to run transactions. And so Axie Infinity actually created its own side chain called Ronin Network, which had a lower number of validators. And then that lack of decentralization made it actually susceptible to a very large hack, the largest hack ever in DeFi. So we have a lot of issues to solve before we can really get there. I do think it's coming. I mean, one category now that I think is almost equally as fun are games like Splinterlands, which are card-based games, very similar to like Magic the Gathering. It's not exactly my cup of tea, but if you're into Magic the Gathering, essentially it's the exact same functionality now. So there's one example, but I think we are a ways off until we can get a Grand Theft Auto style game where each transaction in the game is a real on-chain transaction on a secure layer 1 blockchain. We got a lot of work to do in terms of scalability.
Yeah.
The other side is a lot of these games are so complex. On the other side, a lot of the gamers now with very sophisticated games, those that are coming into the space don't necessarily want that. They want simple. It's just the idea to compete with others. And so there's simple tools now that for micro sticky communities are also being developed. So in this decentralized world where we actually want to tackle the mammoths, there's a huge opportunity in a lot of these micro communities to create gaming products for our already engaged audience.
Yeah, great point.
Thanks for being on this side of the room.
I was just going to comment too that so we work with a company called Mythical Games, and Mythical Games, all of the founders and the people that work there came from traditional gaming, and I think it is kind of important because a lot of the now I'm going to be really loud. So a lot of the people, a lot of the metaverses or the games and the, Axie Infinities of the world and so forth, they're developed by, from crypto developers, right? Not the hardcore gaming developers that you see at like EA Sports or Activision and so forth. And so what these guys have done is they basically have created a system. They started with their own game, but it's kind of a reference implementation called Blanco's Block Party that basically all the characters are NFTs, and then they have a marketplace where people can buy and sell those NFTs. And they basically created a platform so they could go to their buddies at EA Sports and Activision and say, you don't have to figure this stuff out yourself. So there's actually games coming out that are these big company games that are getting into this market.
So great.
Thank you.
I'd just like to, because I mentioned the Philippines. And like, if you actually want to like just hear directly from Filipino kids about how they're like earning the most pocket money they could ever have dreamed of, watch this documentary. It's on Yield Guild, which is obviously one of the guilds of NFTs. It's an 18-minute documentary. Check it out. It's super cool and humbling and amazing.
And then just so everyone knows, these guilds basically, because the NFTs to enter into the Axie Infinity universe got so expensive, it priced out certain people. People actually started banding together in mini collectives, loaning out their NFTs, and thereby, and this was not in the concept of Sky Mavis, the developers. This happened completely organically in the community. They did this so that way other people could, enter, and it started to create this like mini financial system in the game, and that really is what catapulted Axie to its, the level it saw.
Have we got more time? No, we don't have.
Oh my God, you can stay here all afternoon.
Can we have just one more question?
Yes.
What I really want to know, just because you guys, again, are on kind of separate sides, is where do you hope that we're going to be in 10 years? Not like, actual projections, but what would you guys like to see?
So I'll fast forward. I do have other slides, but maybe we can like come and find me over lunch and we can chat.
We'll delay the lunch an hour. Keep going.
No. But this is, I feel like this, everything we've talked about here might, again, like feel a bit superficial. Like, what's the utility? Do you really want your kids to be playing more games? Here's a silver lining, right? This is a generation that is shouting, fighting for social change, right? They're this generation that want solutions for climate change, the Greta Thunbergs, etc., even younger, right? And brands need to understand that. They need to understand representation, wider representation, more diverse voices, social causes, mission. So I feel like that's where I want it to go. Honestly, like, I don't think anyone wants to be in this space for a more dystopian future. And that's been mentioned a number of times already in this room. We want this new technology to be, for social good to be enabled by this technology, right? And I think that is what the Gen Z, the Gen Alphas, the kids want. They're fighting about it. They're going on the streets. They're protesting. And now hopefully they have the technology that will enable them to do that. And brands need to be not only authentic, not only do they need to co-create with their new communities, but they now need to stand for a mission. And that is where I want this to be in 10 years.
Great answer.
Yeah.
For me, I think that there's, these are ideas I'm still working through, but there's almost like two visions of this world. And I think that we have the entrenched tech companies seeing dollar signs in their eyes, right? And they're seeking to create their own version of the metaverse. Again, I know you work for Meta, so not to put you on the spot, right? But they've changed their name to Meta from Facebook, right? Zuckerberg is clearly going into this, and they already have something like 3 billion customers. And that vision of the metaverse is not an open economy. It's not an economy where you maybe own those digital assets. So I hope in 10 years that in blockchain, we at least are able to solve some of these scalability issues, some of these product issues, because I think in the end, consumers are not going to pick public blockchains for philosophical reasons. They're going to pick the better product. So we actually have to make better products, because if it's more convenient and a better product to use the Facebook or big tech version, we may end up losing kind of the soul of the metaverse and losing those ideals.
Well, hopefully it will be a blend where we have, the incoming generation that will absolutely use their coin purse, to only fund things that they believe in. Totally. And then that change will come naturally.
And there's really what it's been the impetus of the Untamed, join it. We want male allies too. And, we want more representation, more voices in the space. And that, part of creating that community is in part to, address this concern.
Well, we could go on, but we do have to stop.
I know.
But I think it'll dive nicely into the next panel. But we're going to find time for you to come back.
Oh no, don't.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
I'm on later at the NFT one.
Okay, then we'll just leave the PowerPoint here and continue.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Lisa.